The crystal throne room gleamed under the cold light of 3 suns. Queen Zixara sat upon her massive seat, carved from a single piece of black stone taken from her first conquered world. Her 4 arms rested on the armrests as she studied the holographic display floating before her. The image showed a strange creature with pale skin and no natural weapons. "So these are the humans," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. Her mandibles clicked together in what passed for laughter among her people. "They call themselves warriors." General Kethvar, her most trusted military advisor, stepped forward. His exoskeleton gleamed with battle scars from 17 different worlds. "My queen, our scouts have gathered extensive data on this new species. They are disappointing." The hologram rotated, showing the human from different angles. Queen Zixara leaned forward, studying every detail. The creature had no claws worth mentioning. Its teeth were flat and dull. Its skin looked soft enough to pierce with a single finger. Most amusing of all, it had no natural armor. "Show me their military forces," the queen commanded. The display changed to show human soldiers in battle gear. They carried metal weapons that fired small projectiles. They wore artificial armor that covered their weak bodies. Some rode in mechanical vehicles with wheels instead of legs. "They require tools for everything," observed Commander Yextal from his position near the wall. "Their own bodies are useless for combat." Queen Zixara rose from her throne, her 2.5-meter frame casting a long shadow. She walked closer to the hologram, circling it like a predator studying prey. Her own body was a weapon crafted by millions of years of evolution. Her exoskeleton could stop most projectiles. Her claws could tear through metal. Her bioelectric organs could stun enemies from a distance. "How many worlds do they control?" she asked. 12 colonies, my queen," General Kethvar replied. "All lightly defended. Their largest military installation has fewer than 10,000 soldiers." The queen's mandibles clicked again. 10,000 soldiers. Her home fleet alone carried 50,000 warriors. Each of her soldiers was worth 10 of these soft-bodied humans. "Tell me about their first contact attempt," she said. Commander Yextal activated another display. It showed a single human ship approaching the outer rim of Cathari space 3 months ago. The vessel was small and carried only diplomats and scientists. They came seeking peaceful integration into what they called the Galactic community, Yextal explained. They offered to share their technology and requested trade agreements. "Peaceful integration," the queen repeated, tasting the words. "They arrived with one ship and asked to join us as equals." "The arrogance is remarkable," General Kethvar agreed. "They seem to believe that discovering faster than light travel makes them worthy of respect." Queen Zixara studied the recordings of the human diplomats. They looked nervous during the meetings, constantly checking their devices and speaking in quiet voices among themselves. When her representatives had questioned their military capabilities, the humans had seemed almost embarrassed. "We prefer diplomatic solutions," one of the human ambassadors had said. "Military action should always be the last option." The queen had dismissed them immediately. Any species that considered military action a last resort was not worthy of her attention. Now, however, she was reconsidering, not because she respected them, but because their weakness presented an opportunity. "Show me their homeworld," she commanded. The display shifted to show Earth, a blue and green planet covered mostly in water. Cities sprawled across the continents, connected by roads and filled with civilians going about their daily lives. The population was over 8 billion, but their military forces were scattered and small. "They have divided themselves into different nations," General Kethvar reported. "These nations sometimes fight each other, but their conflicts are limited in scope. They seem incapable of organizing proper wars." Queen Zixara laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "They fight among themselves instead of conquering other worlds. Truly pathetic." She returned to her throne and settled into it, her mind already working on the possibilities. 12 human colonies represented valuable resources. Their planets could support Kethari hatcheries. Their population could serve as workers. Most importantly, conquering them would demonstrate Cathari superiority to the other species in the galaxy. "My queen," Commander Yextal said hesitantly, "there is one oddity in their cultural data." "Explain." "They seem obsessed with fictional stories about warfare. Their entertainment focuses heavily on combat. Even though they avoid real conflict, they create detailed simulations of battles and train their civilians to fight imaginary enemies." The queen waved a dismissive hand. Fantasy warriors for a fantasy species. They dream of war because they are too weak to wage it. She stood again and walked to the great window that looked out over her capital city. Millions of Cathari moved through the streets below, each one a born warrior. Their society had been forged in conquest. Every citizen understood their place in the great machine of war. "We will give them a demonstration," she announced. "A single battle to show them the futility of resistance." "Which target should we select, my queen?" General Kethvar asked. "Their outer colonies. Choose the weakest one. We will overwhelm their defenses so quickly that the other human worlds will surrender without a fight. And if they refuse to surrender?" Queen Zixara's bioelectric organs crackled with energy. "Then we will harvest their worlds one by one. These humans will learn what real warriors can accomplish." She turned back to her advisors, her forearms spread wide in a gesture of absolute authority. "Prepare the Third Fleet. We launch within the week." "Should we attempt further diplomatic contact?" Commander Yextal asked. "No, diplomacy is for equals. We will speak to them in the only language that matters." The hologram still showed the image of a human soldier. Queen Zixara studied it one final time, memorizing every detail of humanity's weakness. Soon she would see these creatures face her warriors in actual combat. The thought filled her with anticipation. "Dismissed," she commanded. As her advisors filed out of the throne room, Queen Zixara remained standing at the window. Below her, the city continued its eternal preparations for war. Soon that war machine would turn its attention to a new target. The humans thought they could join the galactic community as equals. They would learn the truth about power. In her experience, weak species made the same mistake repeatedly. They confused their own peaceful intentions with actual strength. They believed that others would respect their desire for harmony. They never understood that in a galaxy filled with predators, prey animals were meant to be consumed. The humans would provide an excellent lesson for any other species considering peaceful resistance to Cathari expansion. Sometimes, the Queen reflected, the best way to ensure peace was to demonstrate the consequences of defying superior force. The stealth ship hung in space like a dark shadow against the stars. Commander Vextalk studied the planet below through his ship's sensors, recording everything for Queen Zixara. New Geneva looked peaceful from orbit, its single continent covered in green farmland and small settlements. "Begin detailed scans," he ordered his crew. "The Queen wants to know everything about human defensive capabilities." The scanning officer, a young warrior named Zilnex, worked at her console. "Commander, I'm detecting minimal military installations. 3 small bases, maybe 200 soldiers total." Vextalk's mandibles clicked in amusement. 200 soldiers to defend an entire world. The Cathari assault force would outnumber them 50 to 1. "What about orbital defenses?" he asked. "Limited, sir. A few weapon platforms around the main city. Nothing that could threaten our shields." Through the viewing screen, Vextalk watched the planet's daily cycle. As the sun rose over the main continent, lights appeared in the settlements below. The humans were beginning their day, completely unaware that death watched them from above. "Focus on the largest settlement," he commanded. "I want to see how these humans spend their time." The image magnified to show the capital city of New Geneva. It housed maybe 50,000 humans, spread across several square kilometers. The buildings were low and simple, nothing like the towering fortresses of Cathari worlds. "Sir, the humans appear to be farming," Zilnex reported, confusion in her voice. Vextalk leaned forward to look at her readings. Across the planet's surface, thousands of humans worked in fields tending to crops and livestock. They moved slowly and casually, stopping frequently to talk with each other or rest in the shade. "This is their primary activity?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Agriculture appears to be their main focus. They also have some light manufacturing and research facilities." The commander watched a group of human children playing in a field near their settlement. They ran around without supervision, laughing and chasing each other. No guards watched them. No weapons were visible anywhere. "Show me their military training facilities," he ordered. The sensors swept across the planet's surface, searching for barracks or training grounds. What they found made Vextalk question his equipment's accuracy. "Sir, there's a facility here that might be military training," Zilnex said hesitantly, "but the humans appear to be playing games." The screen showed a large field where humans in colorful clothing chased a round ball. They ran back and forth, trying to kick the ball toward goalposts at either end. Hundreds of other humans sat in stands around the field, cheering and eating food. They call this military training? Vextalk asked. I'm not certain, sir. Our translation programs are having difficulty with their recreational activities. Much of what they do appears to involve competitive physical challenges. Vextalk ordered his ship to observe several human settlements over the next week. What he saw confirmed his worst expectations about human weakness. The humans worked only during daylight hours. They spent their evenings in social gatherings, consuming food and entertainment. They devoted enormous amounts of time to activities that served no military purpose. Even more disturbing, their children were raised in complete safety. Human parents allowed their offspring to explore and play without constant supervision. They seemed to believe their world was safe enough that young ones needed no protection. Sir, Zilnek said during their third day of observation, I've identified what appears to be their primary military installation. The screen showed a small base outside the main city. A few dozen humans in matching uniforms practiced with their projectile weapons. They moved through training exercises that looked clumsy compared to Cathari combat drills. Their weapons training is adequate, Vextalk admitted, but notice how slowly they move, how much time they waste between exercises. He watched a group of human soldiers sitting in the shade, drinking water and talking casually. On a Cathari world, such behavior during training would result in immediate punishment. Commander, his communications officer interrupted. We're receiving new orders from the Queen. Vextalk read the message on his private screen. Queen Zixara wanted his final report immediately. The invasion fleet was ready to depart. Compile all our observations, he ordered his crew. Focus on their defensive weaknesses and the ease of conquest. That evening, as New Geneva's sun set below the horizon, Vextalk transmitted his report to the Cathari homeworld. His message was clear. The humans represented no threat whatsoever. My queen, he concluded his report. These humans live like domesticated animals. They have forgotten how to fight because they have never needed to defend themselves. Their world lacks proper predators. They have grown soft and weak in their artificial safety. He included video recordings of human daily life, farmers working peacefully in their fields, children playing without fear, soldiers training at a leisurely pace, families gathering for meals in the open air. They do not even post adequate sentries, he noted. Our stealth ships have observed them for 7 days without detection. Their security consists of automated sensors that could be easily disabled. The most damning evidence came from intercepted human communications. Instead of military dispatches or strategic planning, their networks carried messages about harvest schedules, family gatherings, and entertainment events. Their government appears to be focused on civilian concerns, Vextalk reported. Food distribution, education, and recreational activities. I found no evidence of military planning or defensive preparations. He paused the recording to watch another group of human children playing in a park. They used sticks as pretend weapons, making explosive sounds with their mouths as they ran around. Even their play fighting looked pathetic. The humans seem to believe that declaring peaceful intentions will protect them from aggression, he continued. They have no concept of strength through conquest. They appear satisfied with their small territory and show no ambition for expansion. As he finished his report, Vextalk felt almost sorry for the humans. They seemed happy in their ignorance, unaware that their peaceful existence was about to end. In a way, it would be merciful to conquer them quickly. My recommendation is immediate assault, he concluded. The humans will surrender after witnessing our superior firepower. Total conquest should take no more than 1 day. He transmitted the report and settled back to wait for the Queen's response. Below him, New Geneva continued its peaceful rotation, its inhabitants sleeping safely in their beds. They had no idea that their world had been marked for conquest. The response came within hours. Queen Zixara herself would lead the assault fleet. She wanted to personally witness the moment when humanity learned its place in the galaxy. Vextalk smiled as he read the orders. Soon, these soft humans would understand what real warriors could accomplish. Their peaceful dreams were about to become a nightmare of conquest and submission. The morning sky above New Geneva split open with fire. 20 Cathari warships dropped out of hyperspace, their hulls gleaming like dark metal against the pale blue atmosphere. Queen Zixara stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the peaceful planet below with satisfaction. Begin the demonstration, she commanded. The first wave of Cathari fighters swept toward the orbital defense platforms. The human installations were primitive compared to Kethari technology, their weapons decades behind the times. Within minutes, explosions bloomed around the planet as the defense grid crumbled. "Their orbital defenses are eliminated, my queen," reported Tactical Officer Hexvar. "No significant resistance encountered." Queen Zixara watched human ships launch from the planet's surface. Small fighters and patrol vessels rose to meet the Kethari fleet, their pilots brave but hopelessly outmatched. The engagement lasted less than an hour. "Pitiful," she murmured as the last human fighter exploded in a ball of flame. Their pilots fight with courage but no skill. General Kethvar stood beside her, studying the tactical displays. "My queen, should we proceed with orbital bombardment of their cities?" "No, I want them alive to witness our superiority. Begin landing operations." The queen had planned this assault carefully. Instead of destroying New Geneva, she would capture it intact. The human government would surrender once they saw Kethari warriors in action. The other human colonies would submit without a fight when they heard what happened here. The first landing ships descended through the atmosphere like falling stars. They carried 2,000 Kethari ground forces, enough to overwhelm any resistance the humans might offer. Queen Zixara watched the deployment from her command ship, expecting to receive surrender signals within the hour. Instead, something unexpected happened. "My queen," Communications Officer Velthar said, concern in her voice. "We're intercepting human transmissions from the surface. Surrender demands, I assume?" "No, my queen. Tactical communications. They appeared to be coordinating a defense." Queen Zixara frowned. The humans should be panicking, not organizing. She had seen their peaceful settlements and weak military training. What could they possibly coordinate? "Show me the surface activity," she ordered. The main screen displayed New Geneva from above. Instead of the chaos she expected, the human population was moving in organized patterns. Civilians evacuated from the city center in orderly columns while soldiers took positions around key buildings. "They're not running in panic," General Kethvar observed. "They seem to have planned for this." "Impossible. Our intelligence showed no evidence of defensive preparations." The Queen watched more closely as her ground forces engaged the first human positions. The human soldiers fought harder than expected, using their knowledge of local terrain to slow the Kethari advance. They fell back from position to position, but in good order. "Casualties?" she asked. "Minimal, my queen, but the humans are not breaking as predicted." Through her ship's sensors, she could monitor Kethari radio communications from the surface. Her ground commanders reported steady progress, but noted unexpected human resistance. "These civilians fight like trained soldiers," came one report. "They know how to use cover and coordinate fire support. They've prepared fallback positions," came another. "This is not random resistance." Most troubling of all were the human communications her ships intercepted. Instead of panic or pleas for mercy, the transmissions were calm and professional. "Delta Squad, fall back to Checkpoint 7. Charlie Squad, provide covering fire. Command, this is Bravo. Enemy forces advancing on the eastern approach. Request immediate support. All units maintain defensive perimeter. Reinforcements are en route. Reinforcements." Queen Zixara leaned forward in her command chair. What reinforcements could possibly matter against her fleet? "Scan for additional human ships in the system," she ordered. Her tactical officer worked at his console for several minutes. "My queen, there are no human military vessels within range. The nearest human colony is 3 days away at their maximum speed." "Then what reinforcements are they expecting?" As if in answer to her question, alarms began sounding on the bridge. A single human ship had appeared at the edge of the system, accelerating toward New Geneva at dangerous speed. "One ship?" General Kethvar asked. "What can one ship accomplish?" Queen Zixara studied the approaching vessel through her ship's telescopes. It was small, badly damaged and leaking atmosphere. Whoever was aboard was pushing their engines far beyond safe limits. "Intercept and destroy it," she commanded. 3 Kethari fighters moved to engage the human ship. The vessel's pilot flew with desperate skill, dodging through the outer edge of the Kethari formation. 2 of the fighters were caught off guard by sudden course changes and collided with each other. The human ship continued its approach, engines overheating and hull plates glowing red. It was clearly going to crash, but the pilot seemed determined to reach the planet's surface. "Should we pursue?" asked the surviving fighter pilot. "Let it crash," Queen Zixara decided. "One more dead human changes nothing." She turned her attention back to the ground battle, where her forces had advanced to the outer edges of New Geneva. The human defenders continued to fall back, but they were extracting a higher price than expected. "My queen," reported Ground Commander Theknal, "the humans are using weapons and tactics not observed during reconnaissance." "Explain." "They possess military equipment not seen in our intelligence reports. Their soldiers move with training levels that exceed our expectations." Queen Zixara watched the tactical display with growing irritation. The humans should have surrendered by now. Instead, they continued fighting with grim determination. "How long until the city falls?" she demanded. "Perhaps 6 hours, my queen. The humans have prepared stronger defenses than anticipated. 6 hours." The queen had planned for this battle to last 1 hour. Her quick demonstration of superiority was turning into a prolonged siege. "Press the attack. Use overwhelming force." "Yes, my queen." As her ground forces prepared for a final assault, Queen Zixara received another report that made no sense. The crashed human ship had somehow survived impact. Someone had walked away from the wreckage. "One survivor," reported her surface observers, moving toward the main battle area. "One human." What difference could one human make? But even as she spoke the words, Queen Zixara felt the first touch of uncertainty. Nothing about this battle was proceeding as planned. The humans were fighting like they had prepared for this moment their entire lives, and now one more warrior had arrived to join their hopeless cause. She watched the lone figure moving across the battlefield and wondered why her victory was taking so much longer than expected. Staff Sergeant Marcus Chen pulled himself from the smoking wreckage of his transport ship. His left shoulder ached from the crash landing and he could taste blood in his mouth. Around him, twisted metal and scattered equipment marked the end of his 3-day journey from the nearest human outpost. He checked his gear methodically. His rifle had survived the impact. His sidearm was secure in its holster. The tactical vest contained enough ammunition and explosives to make a difference if he used them properly. In the distance, he could hear the sound of battle. Cathari weapons made a distinctive whining noise when they fired, different from human projectile weapons. The sound told him everything he needed to know about the situation. Chen activated his communication unit. "New Geneva Defense Command, this is Staff Sergeant Chen, Terran Colonial Marines." "Do you copy?" The response came immediately. "Sergeant Chen, this is Colonel Williams. Thank God you made it. We're barely holding the outer perimeter." "What's your tactical situation, sir?" 2,000 Cathari ground forces advancing on the city center. We've got maybe 300 militia and civilians with combat training. They're pushing us back steadily." Chen studied the battlefield through his rifle scope. The Cathari moved in tight formations, their exoskeletons gleaming in the afternoon sun. They advanced with confidence, knowing their superior numbers would eventually overwhelm the human defenders. "Sir, I need you to pull your people back to the secondary defensive line in exactly 10 minutes. "Sergeant, that will give them the industrial district. Trust me, sir." 10 minutes. Chen moved carefully through the wreckage field, gathering equipment from his destroyed ship. Emergency flares, medical supplies, spare ammunition. Most importantly, he found the case marked with military codes that only senior Marines were authorized to carry. He opened the case and smiled grimly at its contents. Specialized explosives designed for exactly this type of situation. The Cathari warriors were beautiful in their own way, Chen had to admit. Their movements were precise and coordinated. Their natural weapons were impressive. Under normal circumstances, they would be formidable opponents. But these were not normal circumstances. Chen had spent 15 years fighting in environments where everything wanted to kill him. The asteroid miners of Titan had used military-grade equipment and guerrilla tactics. The colonial rebels on Kepler 442 had known every inch of their territory. He had learned to think like both predator and prey, often within the same engagement. He moved through the battlefield like a ghost, using cover and timing to remain invisible. The Cathari were focused on their advance toward the city, not watching for threats from their flanks. The first explosive charge went off under a Cathari supply vehicle. The alien warriors turned in confusion as their ammunition transport disappeared in a ball of fire. By the time they organized a search, Chen was already moving to his next position. Queen Zixara watched from her command ship as reports began filtering in from the surface. Something was disrupting her ground forces, but her commanders couldn't identify the source. "My queen, we've lost 3 vehicles to what appeared to be precision strikes," Ground Commander Theknal reported. No human artillery has been observed. Sabotage? She asked. Possibly, my queen. The explosions are too precise for random weapons fire. The queen studied the tactical display. Her forces still outnumbered the humans significantly, but their advance had stalled. More concerning, human defensive positions that should have fallen were holding firm. On the surface, Chen continued his methodical work. He had memorized the Cathari formation patterns during his approach. Their warriors moved in predictable groups, following doctrine that emphasized overwhelming force over tactical flexibility. He placed charges along their most likely retreat routes. He disabled their communication relays with precision rifle shots. Most importantly, he began targeting their unit leaders. The Cathari command structure was obvious once you knew what to look for. The officers had slightly different markings on their exoskeletons and positioned themselves to direct their troops. Chen had been taught to recognize command hierarchies in dozens of different species. His rifle was a precision instrument designed for long-range engagements in low-atmosphere environments. The Cathari officers presented clear targets against the afternoon sky. Unknown sniper is eliminating our squad leaders, came the report to Queen Zixara. Request permission to fall back and regroup. Denied. One human cannot stop our entire assault, but Chen was not operating as one human. He had established contact with the Colonial Defense Force and was coordinating their movements with surgical precision. Bravo Squad, enemy formation approaching your position from the northeast. Wait for my signal. Charlie Squad, pull back 50 meters and prepare for flanking maneuver. Delta Squad, target the Cathari heavy weapons team when I mark them. Colonel Williams listened to Chen's calm voice directing the battle and realized he was witnessing something extraordinary. This Marine moved through combat like it was a carefully planned dance. Sergeant, how did you know they would concentrate forces on the eastern approach? Standard doctrine for breakthrough operations, sir. They're trying to punch through our weakest point and roll up our flanks. And you've faced this before? Similar tactics, different species. The principles remain the same. Chen watched another Cathari formation advance toward what they thought was a weakened human position. Instead, they walked into a carefully prepared crossfire. The militia fighters had learned quickly under his direction. Execute ambush now, he said quietly. The Cathari warriors found themselves caught in devastating fire from 3 directions. They fell back in confusion, their advance broken. Queen Zixara stared at her tactical display in growing disbelief. Her ground forces were being systematically dismantled by what appeared to be a single additional human warrior. How is this possible? She demanded. General Kethvar studied the reports flowing in from the surface. My queen, this human appears to be coordinating the entire defensive effort. Our commanders report that human resistance has become significantly more effective since his arrival. One soldier cannot transform an amateur militia into professional warriors. But even as she spoke, Queen Zixara realized that was exactly what was happening. The random, desperate resistance her forces had initially encountered had become organized and lethal. On the surface, Chen methodically continued his work. He moved from position to position, always staying ahead of Cathari search teams. His explosives had created chaos in their rear areas. His sniper attacks had eliminated their leadership. Most importantly, his tactical coordination had turned the human defenders from a desperate militia into an effective fighting force. Sir, he called to Colonel Williams, I need your people to hold their current positions for exactly 15 more minutes. What happens in 15 minutes? Chen smiled as he checked his remaining explosive charges. We remind our visitors that they picked the wrong planet to invade. Queen Zixara paced across her command bridge as reports continued flooding in from the surface. Her ground assault had completely stalled. Worse, her forces were beginning to take serious casualties from what should have been a helpless enemy. My queen, Communications Officer Velthar interrupted. We're receiving an urgent transmission from Intelligence Command. What now? They're sending updated data on human military capabilities. The information appears to be concerning. Queen Zixara read the transmission on her private screen. As she processed the words, her mandibles clicked together in what was no longer amusement but alarm. The intelligence update revealed the terrible truth. Her scouts had only observed human civilian colonies. They had never investigated human military installations, training facilities, or historical records. The peaceful farmers and merchants she had dismissed were not representative of human warrior capability. "Me this data," she commanded. The main screen filled with new information about human military doctrine. Unlike the Cathari, who bred warriors for conquest, humans trained their fighters for survival. Every human soldier was expected to operate independently behind enemy lines. They studied the tactics of hundreds of different species and prepared for asymmetric warfare. "My queen," General Kethvar said quietly, "it appears we have made a significant miscalculation." The data revealed that human military forces were divided into specialized units. Colonial defense forces handled local security with light equipment. Regular military forces dealt with standard threats using conventional tactics. But there was a third category that made Queen Zixara's bioelectric organs crackle with nervous energy. Elite units, special forces, Marines trained for the worst-case scenarios imaginable. "The human on the surface," she said slowly. "What unit designation did he transmit?" "Terran Colonial Marines, my queen." More data flooded the screen. The Colonial Marines were human warriors selected for their ability to operate alone in hostile environments. They trained for combat against superior numbers and unknown alien capabilities. Each Marine was expected to function as soldier, saboteur, and tactical coordinator. "This explains the coordination we're observing," General Kethvar noted. "One of their elite warriors is directing the entire defense." Queen Zixara studied recordings of the surface battle. The human called Chen moved through the combat zone with deadly efficiency. His actions were not desperate or improvised. Every movement, every strike, every tactical decision followed a carefully planned strategy. "He's not fighting like prey," she realized. "He's hunting us." The queen watched Chen coordinate another ambush. A Cathari squad moved through what they thought was a safe corridor, only to find themselves surrounded by human fighters who had been positioned with surgical precision. The aliens fell back, but Chen had anticipated their retreat route. More explosives detonated, cutting off their escape. "My queen," Ground Commander Theknal reported from the surface. "Request permission to withdraw to orbital range and begin bombardment." "Explain." "This human is systematically destroying our tactical advantage. He knows our movements before we make them. Our warriors cannot advance without taking prohibitive casualties." Queen Zixara realized she was experiencing something completely foreign to her existence. For the first time in her military career, she was considering retreat from a battle she should have won easily. But more troubling information continued arriving from Intelligence Command. Human entertainment, which her scouts had dismissed as fantasy, contained detailed tactical simulations. Their games were training exercises. Their sports were combat preparation. Even their children learned military concepts through play. "They've been preparing for war their entire lives," she whispered. The revelation grew worse. Human history revealed a species that had survived by turning their homeworld into a graveyard for countless other species. They had driven to extinction every major predator that threatened them. Their rise to dominance had required them to become the ultimate apex predators. "My queen," Velthar said urgently, "we're detecting multiple human fleets converging on this system." The tactical display showed the approaching ships. 3 full battle groups moving at maximum speed toward New Geneva. "They would arrive within hours. How many ships?" Queen Zixara asked. "Over 100 vessels, my queen. Multiple carrier groups and support fleets." The queen stared at the display in shock. Humanity had responded to her demonstration by deploying a force large enough to challenge her entire home fleet. "They're not treating this as a colonial skirmish," General Kethvar observed. "They're responding as if we've declared war on their entire species." More intelligence data arrived, this time with historical analysis. Humans did not fight limited wars. When threatened, they mobilized their entire civilization for total warfare. They had turned their peaceful nature into a strategic deception, allowing enemies to underestimate them before unleashing devastating retaliation. On the surface, Chen finished placing his final charges. The Cathari had pulled back to regroup, giving him the opportunity he needed. He activated his communication unit for a planet-wide broadcast. "This is Staff Sergeant Marcus Chen, Terran Colonial Marines, to all Cathari forces. You have invaded a human colony and threatened our civilians. You have approximately 30 minutes to begin evacuation procedures." Queen Zixara heard the transmission on her bridge. The human's voice was calm and professional, without anger or hatred. Somehow that made his words more terrifying than any threat. "What happens in 30 minutes?" she asked, though she dreaded the answer. Her question was answered by multiple explosions across the battlefield. Chen's carefully placed charges detonated in sequence, cutting off Kethari retreat routes and destroying their heavy equipment. The alien warriors found themselves trapped in a maze of fire and debris. "Full retreat," Queen Zixara commanded. All forces returned to orbit immediately. But Chen had anticipated this as well. His final trap was the most devastating. As Kethari forces rushed toward their landing ships, they discovered that their evacuation zones had become kill zones. Human militia fighters, now operating with deadly efficiency under marine direction, caught the aliens in withering crossfire. "My queen," Ground Commander Theknal reported, "we cannot reach the landing ships. The human has turned our evacuation into a death trap." Queen Zixara realized that everything about this battle had been carefully orchestrated. Chen had not simply responded to her attack. He had manipulated her forces into positions where they could be systematically destroyed. "Signal surrender," she ordered. "My queen, send surrender signals to the approaching human fleets. Tell them we withdraw from human space and request immediate ceasefire." As her transmission went out, Queen Zixara studied the recordings of Chen's actions one final time. This human, who her intelligence had classified as average by their military standards, had destroyed her ground forces and forced her entire fleet to retreat. "Classification update," she said to her intelligence officers. "Humans are not a peaceful species. They are apex predators wearing the mask of civilization. Their restraint is not weakness but the self-control of creatures capable of unimaginable violence." The response from the human fleet commander was swift and uncompromising. "Kethari fleet, you have 30 seconds to begin retreat from this system. Any hostile action will result in total destruction of your forces." Queen Zixara looked at her tactical display one last time. Her 20 warships faced over 100 human vessels. The species she had planned to harvest as prey had revealed itself as the ultimate hunter. "All ships, immediate withdrawal," she commanded. "Maximum speed to Kethari space." As her fleet fled toward hyperspace, Queen Zixara composed her final report to the Kethari High Command. Her words would change how her species viewed humanity forever. Urgent classification update. Humans are death incarnate. Recommend immediate cessation of all hostile actions and formal apology. We have awakened something that should have remained sleeping.